Hold on a moment. Here. All right, everybody. So today we're going to be making some ground beef, and everything you need is linked in my Amazon storefront. Even all the ingredients you'll be needing, including the onion, which we're currently cutting up, the ground beef. I put 2 different types of ground beef depending how lean you like to have your beef. And then I also included the knife, the cutting board, the plates I would be using, as well as the pan I will be cooking this beef and onion on. And then as well as the seasoning products that I use, which you will need some parsley, some onion garlic powder, some salt, and some black pepper that is grounded. If you prefer your black peppers in a different way, let me know so I can make it easy for you to find it on Amazon. But right now we're peeling the onion. We're taking off the skin layer because we will not be eating that layer, so might as well take it off now. As well as olive oil is linked in my Amazon storefront. Everything's under the kitchen essentials. If you're currently joining us on Amazon Live, everything is linked for you as easy access in this live stream. All right, so now we're going to cut this onion in half. Well, first I'm going to cut off the end, which some people say you should wait till the end, but the way I like to cut my onions is by cutting it in half this way. And now I focus on one half of the onion, and I go along the lines that the onion naturally has as best as I would like, and I'm not cutting all the way through because I'll go back and cut the other way. So we have small chunks of onions. Now, if you like to have your onions in different sizes than I am currently cutting it, feel free to go by however you prefer your onions to be cut. And we are using 1 whole onion, especially because I'm using 2 packets of ground beef. And if you're finding out that the slices of your onions are cut too largely, you could go through and just cut like this to have it smaller pieces. Sometimes I move around the onion that I'm cutting to make it easier and safer for me. This piece I'll throw away because it did not look appetizing. So if a piece of onion doesn't look good, be sure to throw that away right now because it's easier to do it before you cook the onion. Oh, some onions flew off of the cutting board. If something falls off of your cutting board onto the ground, do not place it back onto your cutting board, just place it straight into the trash. But say it falls from your cutting board to your countertop. If your countertop is clean, you could add it back to the cutting board or to the plate that we're currently transferring this onion cut pieces to. And we're using this plate because when we cook we're going to be cooking our onions first. But when we start cooking our ground beef, we want to take the onions off of the pan so they do not burn while the meat cooks up, and then later we will transition them back onto the same pan with the ground beef. And I'm doing the same thing with the other half of the onion as I did with the other one. I'm not doing anything complicated. I'm doing something that I know I could do when cutting the onion. It's just a technique I picked up while in school when we had culinary classes. Also a technique I observed my parents doing when they were cooking for me, especially when I was younger. Alright, there's a piece that we just don't want to eat right there. And don't worry, we'll pick up the pieces that are on the ground once we're done, so we don't get our hands dirty with the floor. Also, if I haven't mentioned this already, be sure to have freshly clean hands before you start cooking, even before you start cutting the onion. All right. I have my onions cut exactly how I would like them. Some pieces are slightly bigger, that's okay. It's not going to be initially perfect on every piece, but most of them are the size I prefer to have them. Alright, I'm using the back of my knife to sweep all the onions off of this cutting board. Transferring them onto this plate I have off to the side, which I already placed because I knew it would help me by already having it there. Place it there. Okay. Try to get as many onion pieces as you could, transferring to the plate. Wonderful. Just going to wipe my hands off to the side here. Got the onion juices off. And now I'll be moving the cameras. So give me a moment here as I move these cameras. All right. So we have this camera set up. And I'll be moving now this camera. So be sure not to put your knife into the sink just yet, because we'll be using it to cut open our ground beef packets. That knife already has to be washed. Might as well use the same one to cut open your ground beef. Alright, so now we'll put on our fan. So it might be a little loud now. And we're gonna put the temperature on a medium low. And we're gonna add our olive oil. What I have linked in my Amazon is the organic extra virgin olive oil. This is one that my parents and something that my family just always buys. It's this brand. And it's just one that we're used to and that we're trust. So you're going to put oil all over the pan. Now this pan is also linked to my Amazon. And if you scroll on the live, you can find it there already tagged into this live. And now we're going to wait until the oil is hot. But in the meantime, I'm going to take a wooden spoon and have it next to the side because we're going to be using this wooden spatula to cook everything today. And the reason why we're using a wooden spoon instead of a plastic or metal is because plastic could melt onto the pan and metal could transfer some metal to our food, while wooden is just something we prefer to use in this household and what I'll continue to use even when I no longer live here. And also I noticed that the wooden spoons are currently 30% off. So instead of having it at $21.41, it's currently at $14.99. And also the knife set that I am using is also 20% off. So instead of $50, it's 40% off. So instead of $50, it's currently $29.99. there's anything else that's on sale. So currently those two items are on sale. The oil is an investment just like anything else in this video. But let me tell you, this oil is great. You don't have to use much of it at once. You just gotta make sure that you cover the bottom of the pan, and that did not require a lot of oil. And let me check. This oil is 2 liters, just so you're aware, so it will last you a decent amount. Depending on how often you're cooking, how often you need to use the oil will depend how long it will last you. I'm just going to fix one camera angle here. Easier. At least think it is easier. Hold on. There we go. Perfect. Now I'm also going to put on an apron because we're cooking with oil. And you want to make sure you don't get any oil on you. Be aware the oil has a chance of splashing. So if you would like to protect your clothing, be sure to put on an apron. And also if you have any comments or questions, put it in the comments below. Let's check. We're gonna raise it to a medium heat. We're also going to test the heat by placing the onions. Now, whenever you add something to a pan, especially when it already has some type of liquid at the bottom, you want to put it so where the item is facing away from you. So if there's any splashes, it will not go into your direction. Now, as you can see, when I added those onions, nothing sizzled. So we're just going to wait until, because there's no sizzling, that means the pan is not warm enough to cook yet, so we'll just leave those onions there, and we'll add the rest when it's at a good temperature to start cooking. Now, depending on what type of stovetop you have, the time of how quick your pan will heat up will make a difference. Also, this pan is fairly large, so it will take a little bit longer to heat up than if it was a smaller pan. Currently checking if there's any questions. Not that I see at the moment. All right, the onions are sizzling, so we're going to add the rest. Try to put all the onions that are on your plate onto your pan. And now we're going to make it so all the onions are filling the pan and touching the bottom. And we're just going to wait until they crystallize or turn slightly brown. And that's when we'll know the onions are cooked. And so when that happens, we will transfer them back to the plate that we just took them off. I missed a little bit. There we go. So right now, we don't have to do much stirring, but in a little bit, we'll flip it so the top onions are also being cooked evenly. And if you could hear it, you could hear the sizzling from the pan. Okay, we're gonna flip the onions. We're going to also add some salt and pepper right now to the onions. So here's some salt. And some fine grounded peppers. Mix this around a bit so it's not all on them. So we can mix the seasoning around. Make sure to scrape the sides every once in a while. Okay. Now we'll just let those cook a little bit more. I'm scraping off my utensil on the side of the pan to make sure everything gets cooked. Okay. We're going to check all the onions. Oops, made a mess there. That's okay, sometimes that happens. That's why when you're flipping your onions, go slow. Especially because these onions are being cooked in oil. You want to make sure you're being cautious. And not cautious, but just aware of what you're doing because you are working with something that's currently hot. So I'm going to move these onion pieces that fell off to the side here where I'll clean it up later. Okay, looks like these onions are nice and crystallized, so we'll just add them back to our plate here. Transferring over to this plate. And try to get as much of the onions off, because when we start cooking our ground beef, we don't want any onions being burned. So that's why we're transferring them off to the plate. Also, the taste of the onions will differ if you leave them on the pan cooking longer. Okay, I believe that's, oops. We got everything. I'm going to lower our temperature back to medium low. I'm going to add some new oil for our ground beef. Just a little bit. Now be aware, because now when you're adding your oil, the pan is hot. And we'll move the oil around so it covers the surface. I've added a little bit too much, but it's fine. Now, grab one of your packets of ground beef. Hold on, I'm going to need. Grab a dish bowl. So I have one packet here. I'm just going to cut it open with the knife. Now be aware of how you're doing this. Make sure you have control of the knife when you do. Okay. We'll just cut along the other side here. Now we'll peel this off. Now I might cut the other side as well, to make it easier for me to take out the ground beef. And now we'll place this in our pan. Now be cautious just be aware when you do this. Some oil may fly at you, so because of that, we lowered our temperature so we don't get splashed. As you can see, not a lot of splashing happened there, so that's great. That's exactly how we want it. We're just going to let that sit for a bit as I add the second packet. And you want to do this in a bowl, so then if any liquid from the bag, it leaks onto our dish here that's bowl shaped. Okay, this knife I'm done with, so I'm putting it straight into my sink because it did touch raw meat while cutting this package. All right, now we're going to be adding our second piece. And just be aware of what you're doing. Go at a speed that is good for you. Okay. I'm gonna clean up some raw juices that spilled off to the side here. And I'll clean my stovetop later. Now you could throw this dish into your sink, put this package in your trash. And now you want to cut up your beef, so it makes it quicker to cook. And just focus on one piece of the meat at a time. And we're just cutting it so it makes it quicker and simpler to cook through. We'll cut up this one that's been cooking for a little bit on the bottom here. And now if you're using 1 packet of ground beef, you could use a smaller pan than I am. But since I put in 2, I needed a larger pan to make it much more simpler to flip the beef around and just to move it where it's not falling out of the side of the pan. We're continuing to chopping up our beef in the pan with our wooden spoon. We'll raise our temperature to a medium now that we have transferred all the meat onto our pan. And during this process of cooking, we are going to add our parsley. Add as much as you would like, but also sprinkle it around so it's not just all in one area. I might just add a little bit more here. And then we'll add some garlic powder, once again similar to how we did the parsley. We'll add our black pepper. And our salt. And now we'll mix it. Oh, we have a comment here. Someone from Seattle who enjoys cooking live streams. Well, thank you. Be sure to follow so you can see more in the future. And also be sure to have your notifications on so then you get notified even when you're not on the app when I'm doing a live stream. And so we're just we're turning our beef around because the bottom is already being cooked, but the top is not. And so we want to make sure there is no more red because I don't know how you like your meat, but I like it to be well done. And so that's how we're going to be cooking it today. If you like to have your meat some other style, then just be aware when you're cooking and stop when you have your meat the way you like it. Okay. Flipping the meat. And be aware sometimes flipping the meat may require some patience because because every piece that we're cooking with is different here. So some pieces may be slightly easier to flip around than others, and that's okay. Something that helps with me is by cutting it up the piece to be able to flip other pieces around. So if you're seeing a lot of red on the top, just flip those pieces so the red are touching the bottom of your pan. Okay, we got some red pieces cooking on the bottom. And now we're going to add our onions to it because most of the beef is now fairly cooked. So now it's a good time to add it because the onions won't burn that much. And I will take this time to fold the onions into our beef and get it around. And the reason why we add onions is because they make the beef taste much better than if you were to add without. They're a great seasoning, they're healthy for you. They're also linked to my Amazon storefront. I'm currently using yellow onions. Yellow onions, I believe, are the best to cook with, especially with meat. Now for salad, you may want to use a purple/red onion. That is completely fine. Even for salads, I use yellow onions because those are the ones I have mainly at my house, so I use what I have. But if you like to cook with red meat and you want to see it on my Amazon storefront, please let me know on my YouTube page or in this Amazon live stream. Put your comments so then I can add it for you so it's an easy find and you don't have to go searching all over Amazon to find it. You could just come to my storefront under Kitchen Essentials to find it. Oh, thank you for the follow very much. And it looks like someone clicked on an item. Oh, wonderful. You've looked at the garlic powder. In my opinion, garlic powder makes it very easy, especially then you don't have to crush garlic cloves, and you could easily add it to any dish. I add it to chicken, to my pasta, and to this ground beef recipe. So it may look like our ground beef is done, but as I move it around, there are still some reddish pink bits. So I'm just moving those to the bottom of the pan so that they could cook more. But besides that, it looks like in a few moments we'll be done with our ground beef. And if you can have this ground beef as taco, salad, spaghetti. You could use it for basically anything. You could make it into a sandwich, or you could just eat it with some rice or some parsley. Or even with some sauerkraut. Currently at the moment my brother's adding sauerkraut to almost every meal. But I will say if you're going to have sauerkraut, have it in small portions because you're more likely to finish everything on your plate then, just because it is a bit sour. I mean, it is called sauerkraut. Even though it is spelled differently, it does sound like sour. Okay. Just going to let it cook for, let's see, we'll check it in a minute. And also a nice thing of having this plate, then you have somewhere to put your utensil that you are using to make, to cook and stir everything. Alright, I'm going to see if we have any questions anywhere. Doesn't look like. Once again, you can find everything on my Amazon storefront, which on YouTube, if you're coming from there, is linked in the description below. And then you would just go to the list that is called Cooking Essentials, or Kitchen Essentials, my apology. And everything will be there from the pan I'm using, the wooden spoon, the meat, even the plate, the wooden cutting board, the knife I used, as well as the seasoning ingredients and the onion. A minute has passed, so I will check the meat. There are still some pink bits as I just found, so I'm trying to push those to the bottom. And right now I'm just digging through to see what's cooked and what still needs some time. Okay, looks like everything is well done. I can't even find the pink bits that I recently just pushed to the bottom, which is good because that means it's cooked all the way through. But I am double checking just to make sure that it's cooked all the way through. Yep, looks like everything's cooked. So now, there's a piece of raw meat right there that I'll clean up. And then we'll clean up this onion. Put it right there. We'll transfer our pan to a stovetop that is not hot. We will turn off the stovetop that we use. Now there was a mess that I made, but because this area is currently extremely hot, I will not be cleaning it until this area has cooled down, which my stovetop will tell me right here because it shows me when a surface is hot, and currently there is a light flashing red over this area, signifying that this area is still hot. So we'll leave those pieces as they are. We'll turn off our fan. I'll leave the light on for video recording purposes. But this is step by step how to cook ground beef all by yourself, from cutting the onions to cooking the ground beef, when to add your onion and seasoning. So if you did enjoy, be sure to follow my account, as well as have your notifications on, and be sure to check my Amazon products to make investment for yourself to easily make this cooking experience simple. And until next time,